Aquis-listed Mendell Helium, epic code MDH, will shortly complete the acquisition of Kansas-based M3 Helium, which holds an interest in 10 helium wells there in Kansas. Following a fundraise, the company is entering an intensive period of activity as it ramps up helium production at its Ross well, implements a Bitcoin treasury strategy to support operating activities, and prepares for a move from Aquis to AIM. I'm joined by Chief Executive Nick Tulloch to tell us more. Hello there, Nick.
Hi, Alan. Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well too. Thank you.
So, Nick, I don't think busy adequately describes the status quo at Mendell Helium at present. We've seen video reports from you and Chief Engineer Alex Chen, both from Rost and also from the Broby water disposal well. Can you bring us up to speed on where you are operationally today?
Yeah, of course. And you're right. It's been a pretty full year, and that's kind of how we like it. And I think it's only going to get more active from here. The main activity on the ground in the last few months has been, as you just described, bringing Rost into production. Rost is a well in a place called Fort Dodge, which for sort of Western movie fanatics, I suppose, in the audience would know as Get Out of Dodge. Fort Dodge is just about 3 miles outside of Dodge City, which is where the Rost well is. You couldn't really pick a better location for a well. It's 30 yards off a main road. We've got 3-phase power, flat land as you'd expect for Kansas. And then 300 yards from Rost is Broby, which is a disposal well, which was recompleted by us a few months back. And in fact, any day now, we'll get the confirmation from Kansas that Broby can be used. It's literally due at any time. Most things in America come by post, and so we're sort of waiting for the mail every day to see it come through. Once Broby is approved, and we're confident it will be, then we can start the process of bringing Rost into production. And broadly, that means dewatering Rost. The water goes into the Broby disposal well, and with the water removed, the gas should flow. Rost has been tested in the past at 2,900 MCF. This is not a projection as to what we think it can do. I mean, that's the maximum. I always say to people, you don't drive your car at 100 miles an hour 24/7. You know it can go to 100 miles an hour, but you drive it at a more pedestrian pace, perhaps. And the same we true of Rost. We know it can do 2,900. It will not be that, but it will be a big number. And even at a tenth of that, we've had some illustrations in the market to say that could be $100,000 a month revenue for our company. So it's a significant moment for us.
And of course, Rost is not the only well. You have a number of other wells there to develop. And of course, you have this agreement with Scout's Energy regarding the Jayhawk processing plant.
Well, we do. We operate in 2 regions. So I've talked about Fort Dodge. The better known region is the Hugoton, which is probably one of the best known gas fields in the world. If you draw it out, it looks like a backwards map of Italy, but it stretches through 3 states. It starts in Kansas, where we are, and then goes through Oklahoma and finishes in Texas. It's been in production for about 90 years, and most of our activity to date has been in the Hugoton. And by number of wells, most of our activity will still be in the Hugoton. We've switched our attention to Fort Dodge because of the downhole pressure, because of the helium composition. We're getting 5.1% helium at Rost in Fort Dodge. Hugoton wells tend to be about 0.6. Now, the temptation to say, well, okay, Rost is 10 times better. The calculation is not quite as simple as that. One of the beauties of the Hugoton is it's got an amazing infrastructure network. I mean, you'd expect nothing less, given this is an area that's been prospective for so many years. But every well we have in the Hugoton is connected to a gathering system, basically a network of pipelines that looks like a sort of spider's web across the region. And those pipelines go back to the Jayhawk gas processing plant. This is run by Scout Energy, who are our partners in the Hugoton. And according to Scout, Jayhawk does about 4% of the world's helium. So, in terms of postcodes to be in, the Hugoton is an amazing place. And wells in the Hugoton are very dependable. I often say to people, a dry hole in the Hugoton would be front page news. It just doesn't happen. But Hugoton wells last for decades. I mean, what we have in the Hugoton will be still in production during my children's adulthood. So it's a long-term opportunity, but the near-term excitement is in Fort Dodge, which is why we're focusing our time and effort there. But I never like people to forget that the Hugoton is of course, where this company began, and will continue to be the backbone of our production.
Well, as one of the very few listed companies actually producing helium, are you frustrated that the progress and also the sheer operational scale and potential that you just outlined simply isn't reflected in the market valuation?
I mean, yes, to an extent. I sort of get over it fairly quickly. I mean, we're happy being the guys just quietly getting on with it behind the scenes. I'm not a seller of shares. Quite the reverse, actually. I think we've got an amazing opportunity, and as we produce helium, as we prove what we say we're going to do, I would expect the share price to follow suit. We are moving markets. We are looking at moving the company onto AIM. We are also, I guess, this conversation is an example, just making people aware of what we have. I think we've got a fantastic setup. We have infrastructure, and helium is really all about infrastructure. Anyone who's bought a balloon from a market and let it go knows just how difficult this element is to control. So helium is all about getting it to market, and we are. And I mentioned Jayhawk. This is just 50 miles even from Fort Dodge. We're in a terrific location. We've got access to gathering systems. We've got access to a big processing plant. And as you say, we are producing helium. So I'm confident that in time people will see what we have. And sure, I look jealously at other people's share prices. I mean, don't we all? But I'm very happy with our business plan, and there's nothing that we're doing that we're going to change. We're going to focus on areas that we think are more profitable. If we'd spoken 6 months ago, most of our activity was in the Hugoton. We've got an amazing opportunity in Fort Dodge with Rost. We're going to continue to expand in that region, whilst continuing our operations at the Hugoton at the same time. So, I'm very happy with how things are going, and I hope and expect the share price will follow suit in due course.
Well, an intriguing move to implement a Bitcoin treasury strategy also with an oversight committee. Given that Mendell is using or looking at using excess methane production to provide energy for a cryptocurrency and Bitcoin mining operation, can you talk us through this process and the thinking behind it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bitcoin is flavour of the month in the London market at the moment. I mean, everyone's very excited about it, and I think rightly so. Um, we sort of look a bit smugly at it and say, well, we kind of started this. We were one of the first companies to come out to say we were looking at doing something in Bitcoin. Like many of the best ideas, they get taken, they get improved, and actually a Bitcoin treasury policy is what everyone wants to hear about. But where we began in our Bitcoin plans, is exactly where we are and intend to be, which is we are helium producers. But helium comes out of the ground as a collection of other gases. You don't get 100% helium find. I mentioned our Rost well is 5%. Therefore, there's 95% of other gases that we don't necessarily need. Now, if we can strip out the helium, which is what we do, and sell the helium, what can we do with the other 95%? And I often say to people, I'm fiercely Scottish. I'm allergic to spending money. I don't like waste. That 95% waste product actually has a value. And if we can use that 95%, whether it's Rost, whether it's other wells, to find a way of creating value, then we certainly should. And the answer is take out the methane, take out the hydrocarbon content from the waste products. This is not just about Ross, this is about other wells we may have in the future. Take out that hydrocarbon content, use that to power a generator. The generator itself will power an on-site server, and we will mine Bitcoin. And I said a moment or two ago, Rost could not be in a better location for a well, and the same is true of the whole Fort Dodge area. It's a crisscross of main roads, tarmacked main roads. It's a crisscross of communication networks. We have three-phase power, I mentioned, on site. So this is a wonderful location to be mining Bitcoin. We have everything we need, including a waste methane product. So our Bitcoin strategy is about two things. One is, can we mine Bitcoin with a waste product? We think we can. Can we buy Bitcoin with profits that we'll make from helium production? Yes, we can. Yes, I think we should. And so what investors will have with Mendell Helium is primarily a helium production business. That's what we're about. But we'll use some of our profits to acquire a Bitcoin stake or Bitcoin treasury. And also we'll use some of our waste products to mine Bitcoin and accelerate that treasury that way. So it's an integrated strategy. It's not just about buying Bitcoin and hoping for the best. It's about developing our helium production and using that waste product to turn that into Bitcoin as well.
That's really exciting. Really look forward to hearing more about that, Nick. But as chief executive, you'll now be taking your salary part in shares, which of course underscores your confidence in the project and the assets. Do you expect other board members to follow you?
Well, they will make their own decisions as to how they would like to proceed, but I would make two observations. First is none of the non-executive members of the board are being paid. They're not taking anything at all, and they won't until we move to AIM. I'm working several hours more than they are, which is why it was agreed I would take a small salary, but also take a lot of that in shares. But also all of the directors, yeah, and that includes directors of M3 as well as directors of Mendell Helium. We have all recently and in the past put money into the company. So all of us are net contributors to the company. And that kind of goes back to your question a few moments ago about what do we think of the share price? Well, I think we've got a really good opportunity. Yeah, it would be careless and foolish for me to start predicting what share prices could do. But when I look at what we have in the ground, under the ground, and the prospects to take the business forward, there's genuine excitement here. And yeah, I was very, very happy to take part of my remuneration in shares because I really do believe this is a wonderful chance for this company to grow from the position we're in. We spoke about helium production in 2 regions. We spoke about what we can do in Bitcoin. We're looking to expand our land holdings. We're looking to increase our number of wells. And this is all the obvious thing you do. If you have a successful well, you look to repeat it. And that's exactly what this company will look to do. So, I think that there's a lot to look forward to. And as a result, I'm happy to take remuneration stock. And other directors are happy to wait until we get to AIM, at which point we would expect hopefully a very big or bigger and stronger company.
Of course, on the subject of share price and the Mendell value proposition, that proposition is very much on institutional investor radar right now. Of course, Hot Rock's investment recently became a major shareholder, now holding 6.5% of the company after acquiring 7.5 million shares. Do you expect that your move to the AIM market will accelerate that institutional interest?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Hot Rocks for participating. I mean, it was a terrific investment and a terrific show of faith in us. And this is the first time this company has put out a TR1 to say that we've had a major investment from an institutional investor. So that was a great moment for us anyway. But we've had a number of conversations with institutions over the past few months, and people are interested in what we're doing. And the comment that keeps coming back to us, first said to me actually by quite a well-known small cap investor, that's been repeated in the past, which is this is a company that is at an inflection point where it's about possibly to go positive cash flow. As we get Rost in production, as we start to generate significant helium production, this is a big moment for the company. And if you look, I guess, across a sort of a history of small cap or even mid cap stocks, often the best time to invest in these companies is when they turn to positive cash flow. And that's the position we're headed towards. So, we don't have that significant investment just yet, but we do have a number of conversations. And, I mentioned moving to AIM, and we both sort of spoke about moving to AIM. We believe it will give us a higher profile. It may give us better liquidity, but it may put us in a position to start to attract that institutional investment. We've done the first part. We've started the conversations. We've met several of these investors more than once. Next step is to get them to invest. And if we keep doing what we're doing and we keep producing helium, hopefully we've got a very good chance of doing that.
Well, Nick, we're running short on time. It's been great talking with you. Before we wrap up, we've already touched on this to some degree. What should investors and shareholders be looking for in the coming weeks and months?
Well, in the very, very near term, we hope to have all the permits in place to start producing from Rost. So that's sort of the first big milestone. We've been talking about Rost for quite some months. So to be in a position to say we are now ready to go, that's a very significant moment. We're going to continue to develop what we have in Fort Dodge. We have some additional land already. We're looking to increase that. Again, there should be no surprise there. If you do one thing successfully, you want to be able to do it again and again. So we're looking at other opportunities in that same region. And it's a region that's working well for us. I mentioned it's just a great location in terms of communications and access. The Bitcoin plan will also continue. We will examine wells now on a dual strategy basis. First and foremost, we want to produce helium. But secondly, what can we do with the residual gases? And if we are comfortable and confident those residual gases will power a generator, which itself can power a server, then we've got a Bitcoin mining operation. So those are probably the things that investors should look out for. I mean, you started saying we're a busy company. That's absolutely not changing. If anything, we're accelerating where we are.
Nick Tulloch, Chief Executive at Mendell Helium, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Alan.